Real quick, before we get started, I did pick up Age of Empires 4. Going to be bringing you some content. Spent the day sort of teaching myself that game. Yeah, I'm going to be probably doing some streaming of my own practice versus the AI, maybe some other human players practice the casting as well, just trying to familiarize myself with the game. Something I do know a lot about, though, is pistoliers in general, missile cavalry. Somebody recently asked me, how do I use missile cavalry? And it is a subject that comes up in my patron practice sessions pretty frequently. I am well known for being a pistolier enjoyer, so we're going to be showcasing a replay of myself as Empire up against Gojira's Greenskins. I've got 4 pistoliers, Volkmar leading a spam of infantry. We've got 2 halberdiers, 3 flagellants, Bright Wizard, Warrior Priest, both on foot, 2 great swords, Spearman up front. And that's pretty much it for the Greenskins. We've got Azag the Slaughterer, 2 Boar Chariots, definitely very dangerous to my infantry-centric build, 2 Black Orcs and 2 Biggins, so relatively light on infantry in a way, in terms of numbers, heavy on quality. We've got some Spider Rider Archers as well, a Night Goblin Shaman, all good stuff, some Arrow Boys also. So the pistoliers initially are going to be used in sort of a skirmish phase, right? So there's a number of different ways. I could probably write a full book, to be honest, about how to use missile cavalry. One of the primary uses is, of course, skirmishing, sort of like moving in and out, harassing your opponents, trying to pull units out of position, find vulnerable units to potentially blast into. Pistoliers specifically do have high DPS, relatively limited range and ammunition, so you get in quick, do some damage, and get out, and you definitely do want to take advantage of the damage. Unlike, say, the Greenskins Missile Cavalry generally has very low missile damage. Magi Marauder's Regiment Round does have okay AP, but like even the ROR Death's Creepers here, low missile damage, mostly just there for the poison, right? And to, again, harass. Here, though, we're going to use them to support Volkmar, and one thing to note about missile attacks in general, one reason why fundamentally missile attacks are, in a way, better than melee attacks, even from the front, missile attacks apply a leadership debuff. Any form of missile attack, whether it's firing into the flank, the side, or rear, artillery and small arms count as separate leadership debuffs, right? So if we go ahead and take a look here, these Biggins, while they didn't quite get terrified like how I was hoping, you can see here under missile fire, so a melee unit attacking from the front isn't going to innately affect, leadership. You have to attack them in the side or rear. I just wanted to give a minute to appreciate this Doom Diver here, just absolutely eviscerating the Sigmar Sons, firing, side-shotting downhill, and just to kill like most of the unit in just a couple of shots, which is pretty impressive. The Boar Chariots also making their presence felt here. But the Pistoliers are supporting Volkmar, and we basically not quite fully neutralized both units of Biggins, more or less with just running Disruption on Volkmar and blasting in. But, yeah, that's quite good value on the Pistoliers themselves. Struggling somewhat in this infantry fight, but here comes a Burning Head. We've also got the Warrior Priest, Banner of Eternal Flame, so that'll give a little damage spike to all of these units nearby. Excuse me. Still getting over my little cold thing, but Great Swords moving in. We're going to try and hit them with the Hammer of Sigmar attack buffed. Take out those Black Orcs in a hurry. The steady unit of Black Orcs I'm going to now pull away from. We've got these Halberds kind of moving up as they were in reserve, now screening out, trying to prevent these Spider Riders from getting at the Pistoliers. Pistoliers staying concentrated here. A lot of people, especially higher-end players in super high-level games will spread out their Missile Cavalry, but for most players, especially when you're learning, it helps keep them concentrated, especially with Pistoliers, in that your volume of fire is so nice, and oftentimes you can sort of use them, like initially you saw I was kind of skirmishing, poking and prodding for weakness, just to appreciate for a second here, these Great Swords are up to 81 melee attack, and absolutely tearing apart these unfortunate Black Orcs. The other Black Orcs get caught down in the low ground, and I'm going to set up a nice concave here. This is more something that you normally see with like Outriders, but certainly any missile cav can kind of set up and act more as an infantry skirmisher would, just sort of shooting from a stationary position. As the Halberds kind of hold these Black Orcs here, Pistoliers have good enough AP values that they'll certainly contribute some pretty decent damage here. As is that Doom Diver, man. Doom Diver still 171 kills, still has quite a bit of ammunition left. Not a great situation. Fate of Buna also, or Fate of Boring rather, on these Great Swords, going to tear them apart. So although we did beat down those Black Orcs, this infantry fight's kind of turning into a little bit of a wash. I do have some units coming back from route over here. Flagellants kind of being used to pressure the Greenskin skirmish cav away, although they're definitely going to eat all the arrows, even though they don't do much damage. The lack of any sort of armor there will certainly work against them. But banishment on the Black Orcs as they continue to get lit up by pistols. And so basically, yeah, getting back to that initial skirmish and then pulling them back, using them almost more like a traditional skirmisher. Now Gojira's going to try and pressure with Azag, but really, with only 70 armor, Azag doesn't want any part of this high DPS concentrated missile cav fire, so he's going to try and fly away, even still taking significant damage in the meantime. Fighter Riders also moving in. Again, just going to try and screen with the supporting halberds. Stay away from the light melee cavalry and just keep firing. Just keep firing. Just keep firing. Anyway. Meanwhile, Volkmar is making a push here. Got the Flagellants moving in, finally shutting down that Doom Diver. Flagellants are really good right now. I definitely am a huge fan of them in the current patch. A little bit of Vindictive Glare, swing and a miss there, but they're just, you know, relentlessly pressing forward, pushing back the Green Tide here. You have some Black Orcs coming back from route. The Great Swords are not going to trade amazing versus the Boar Chariots, but we'll see. At this point, I'm starting to take a little bit of a lead on the balance of power, as a lot of these Greenskin units aren't really long for this world. I am starting to run out of ammunition on the Pistoliers, but another big, probably one of the biggest things about Missile Cap Micro is just positioning. You notice here, I'm not necessarily giving any, at any point really, except maybe on Azag. I was never really giving a specific attack order, right? It's always just about positioning my Missile Cavalry in such a way that they're going to be shooting whatever units I would prefer. Like right here, they may not actually do all that much damage to this Boar Chariot, but they're just going to move within the area, get a few shots. That concentrated fire actually will do a substantial amount of damage, might even finish off the unit, but just keep the unit routed, right? Apply those leadership debuffs with missile attacks, keep that unit routed. I don't even have to path them in, like, again, on an attack order with, you know, chasing a routing unit off at a melee sense, right? Like, with these Pistoliers that are out of ammunition, obviously, that's the way to do it. Now that they don't have any shooting attacks left, but even with just a few shots left of getting in, applying that leadership debuff, getting units off the field, you can get them to rout a second or third time, get them to shatter. Remember, if a unit routs a certain number of times, I want to say if it's 3 times unit routes, and it will automatically shatter, right? So just getting those quick little routes on those tattered units, sort of zoning out. Obviously, you can switch them into melee mode, either by holding Alt and issuing an attack order, or if you click, or if you hit the F key on a standard keyboard, it will toggle between melee mode. And as long as they're on fire at will, they'll still keep shooting as well. Some important control tips. I would generally recommend against using skirmish mode on any units, really, unless you just don't care about that unit doing anything or not. Like, if it's really meant to just harass, and basically if you want to not have to micro the unit, again, and you don't care about it either dying or not necessarily contributing a lot, if it's more meant just purely to harass, then you can, you know, move it to an area, set it on skirmish mode, maybe issue an attack order so it'll move in and start shooting, then kind of forget about it. But most of the time, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, I manually micro my Missile Cavalry, which, you know, if you make mistakes like I often do, that can definitely lead to them getting killed. I'm somewhat infamous for being somewhat brutal, let's say, with my beloved Pistoliers. But hey, they know the risks. They know what they're signed up for. They get paid extra, so it's okay. Oh, yeah. And win all the glory, too. In this late stage, Volkmar is definitely carrying me to a degree, but I still have quite a bit of infantry. This Halberd was mostly sitting in reserve the entire game, so they are basically completely healthy. Volkmar is at his healing cap. He definitely took a lot of damage. Most of the infantry is gone, but some clutch Pistoliers still left. Along with that Warrior Priest, we'll fast forward through the end game as... excuse me. Gojira's Azag eventually routs. Little Gabo was fighting over on the corner there. Didn't really highlight him too much, but yeah, honestly, this is one of the better games I've played with Pistoliers recently. I mean, I've had, over the years, a lot of very awesome, fun games with Pistoliers, and yeah, I mean, they all pay for themselves, more than that, almost doubling up in one case. So that's excellent there, sort of showcasing, giving good supporting fire, a little bit of harass, a little bit of setting up as more of a traditional skirmish line, in general providing DPS, and I would definitely say, you know, with the Missile Cavalry with higher DPS, you know, this is a good way of using them, right? To try and concentrate fire and really deal significant damage. That would be like Pistoliers, any kind of throwing axe or javelin cavalry from Beastmen or Warriors of Chaos, Norska. Those are all very high damage as well. The more bow type are better for harassing, depending, like if Elven light cavalry or certain others that have decent stats are more useful for the hybrid type role, which we didn't really see a ton of here. Which is like, you know, running down skirmishers, obviously shutting down artillery crews. Oh, Gojira also, I mean, all of his skirmish cavalry pretty much pays for itself. Microed it very well. Doom Diver, 1100 points, 186 kills. Great value there. On the infantry front, I was able to shut down Gojira's infantry pretty efficiently through sort of different supporting combined arms means. Didn't really have much in the way of numbers, even though the Boar Chariots did okay. One of them, at least, does pay for itself. The other one definitely could have been split up just to take a few more numbers here, take some Goblin meat shields up front, trade pretty well into state troops with buffs. They're decently cost-effective. I think actually some of the better low-tier troops in the game. But anyway, just to kind of finish up here, we'll be talking a little bit more about Missile Cav as we go on. I have in the past, and I will continue to do so. So, yeah, there's that. If you want to know more about Missile Cavalry, you can just Google, like, the name of a given Missile Cavalry unit, and I may have done a unit highlight on that unit, and you can obviously see some more use of different types of missile cavalry. But so the way I would sort of define it is you have in a way 3 categories, right? You have your traditional sort of high DPS and then low DPS. The high DPS tends to have less range, throwing axes, pistols, javelins. Like I said, these types have a little bit less range but much better damage, and they can definitely dish out pain in a big hurry. Bows, on the other hand, tend to have much better range, and actually specifically will trade well into these shorter range. Like if you're playing, you know, High Elves, or even like, let's take Bretonnia. Like you take, you know, even though Yeomen aren't the best unit in a lot of matchups, they do outrange these Javelin-type cavalry, right? 125 versus only 80 for the throwing axes. I think Horse Masters are also, 90 range on them. So even though it's not a big difference, it is enough of a difference that, especially with something like Reaver Archers at 140 range, you can just sit outside and shoot the, you know, shorter range, higher damage, and try and avoid letting the higher damage cavalry get close to you. So they do trade well into the higher damage cavalry, even though they won't trade as well with other types of units in damage output. But still very, very useful for harassing at a distance. And the third type is only represented by a couple of different units. Mostly it's Dark Riders, Outriders. These are more like mounted missile infantry than really traditional, like, skirmish type cavalry. They're technically all missile cavalry, yes, but, you know, they only fire forwards. Outriders can fire while moving, while Dark Riders cannot. But, yeah, you use them more like mobile infantry, where you have to set up and then shoot, you know, from a firing position, rather. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you want more Missile Cavalry content, or just Total War Warhammer 2 battles in general, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Yeah, thanks again. We'll see you next time.